Every single day we are bombarded with images, messages, be it online, TV, magazines, newspapers. We all know the impact that bad news on TV can have on our wellness, really, our emotional state. But what about adverts? They can be entertaining, thought-provoking, some can be misleading. But how can they affect how we feel? We're speaking now to Ahmad Abu Zannad, who's an author, a strategist and the founder of the advisory firm Native, to talk about the role that adverts have on our mood. And I'd love to hear from you about what you think have been some of the most successful adverts of all time, the ones that made you think, made you buy, have really stayed with you over the years. I still to this day... It wasn't a great advert. Still to this day, remember the Mr. Frosty advert, which was this snowman. I don't know if you saw this, Ahmad. It was like a plastic snowman that you put ice in the back of, and then you kind of twisted the back, and it turned the ice into slush, and then you added flavouring. And my parents never let me have it. And I'm now in my 40s and still feel I'm owed a slushie. How are you this afternoon, sir?
I'm very good, Hen. How are you?
I'm really well. I find this such a fascinating topic. And as I said, I'd love to hear from people about the adverts that they feel like have been really effective, for want of a better word. But let's go back to my original question. When we're looking at the psychology of advertising, what impact can it have on the way we feel?
Yeah, it can have an immense impact. It can be annoying, or it can be super uplifting. And, we are all optimists, and we are delusionally optimistic. And this means, and biasly optimistic. So optimism bias is something 80% of us have.
Can you unpack that a little bit? What does that mean?
So when you're optimistic, it means that the way you foresee the future is better than your today and your yesterday, the present and the past. And when you are biasly optimistic or optimism bias, it means that towards yourself, you believe that the future you hold for your own self is much better than all the contexts that's out there.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, just when you're saying that, my immediate thought was, if someone's going to start a fitness plan in January, they're thinking, well, future Helen is going to have so much discipline.
Exactly.
She's going to be really organised, and this is very unrealistic, but very optimistic.
Yes. So, and we need this. It's a survival technique. And apparently studies are showing that if you are realistic about the future, meaning that you predict it accurately, you will suffer from mild depression.
Yeah, I can well imagine that.
And this is in nature. We needed this survival mechanism, and it's the triumph of hope over experience. And apparently when our mind evolved into the ability to travel in time mentally, so we can worry about the future and, reminisce about the past. This happened at the same time where we were conscious enough of our own mortality. So when your next door neighbor, who is just as old as you, who suffers from or has the same health conditions as you, when they suddenly pass away, you need optimism bias to survive, to say, no, it will not happen to me.
I'm different. I'm special.
I'm different.
So how does this relate to advertising?
So we needed this in nature to foresee a future where we look better, we act smarter, we are much more fun, we are funnier. And we needed this in nature. But in today's marketplace, the way you foresee your future has to do a lot with what you are going to wear, what are you going to drive, what vacation are you going to take, and who allows you and who helps you foresee this future. It's what you see in the ad.
So this is, though, I'm just thinking of a kind of a parenting example, that beautifully groomed mother with the clean children who are eating their veggies, and they've cooked that in this oven, and that oven is that's solving my problems. That's gonna make my children well behaved and great eaters, and it's gonna make me calm and organized. We're looking for something to fix us.
Yes. So studies, fMRI studies, they've done it in Duke University, where they wanted to see the effect of advertising on your brain and on your brain functions, which means your mood. So there are brands whose advertising is very cheerful and it's very inspiring. So it's Coca-Cola, Coke. So it's open happiness. It's all about happiness. Apple is about, you're creative. You can be different, think different, challenge the status quo and all of that.
Just do it.
Just do it is Nike. But on this study, it was Apple versus Samsung. Samsung is a very functional brand. It just talks reality. And Coke versus Pepsi. So the same people were exposed to the Apple brand and its advertising and the Coke brand. And they were, monitoring the brain and scanning the brain. And they saw that, the functions in the brain that were activated when they saw Apple and Coke were those of, feeling better, happy, you're happier. While when they saw Pepsi and Samsung, no reactions, no triggers, no nothing.
How interesting. And this is to do with the tone, the mood that they were setting in their adverts. Is it to do with associations of, certain brands being more aspirational?
Yes. So the average person is exposed to 6,000 to 8,000 ads per day. So advertising is everywhere and it's not going anywhere. But we can choose to live in a world where advertising is allowing us to foresee a brighter future where we actually perform better and it really can affect our well-being in the present, or a world where advertising is just all over, intruding, interrupting and annoying.
Ahmad Abu Zannad is with us to talk about some of the psychological tricks that advertisers use. Now, we wrote our letters to Santa. I say we, my children wrote their letters to Santa a few weeks ago, and my nearly 8-year-old has asked for Santa's phone number. I was like, that's good, that's smart. She's asked for a new swimming costume and an iPhone 14, to which I went, that's a very hard no for very many reasons. And I was like, where did you hear about an iPhone 14? She was like, oh, in YouTube ads, it comes up all the time. And I was like, well, we're in trouble. Because when I watched TV as a child, it was during the advertisement breaks. In my day, there were 4 channels. There were 4 channels. And that was where I got my ideas for what Christmas presents, what birthdays, what are other, Mr. Frosty the slush machine was that. Whereas now it's online and our attention spans are so much shorter. Yeah. So how have advertisers had to adapt to the platform of online? Whether that is obviously the strategy of capturing attention, but also those kind of call to actions as well. What does that look like now?
Well, believe it or not, they're still adapting, still figuring it out, and it keeps on changing. So as soon as they figured out YouTube and Facebook, TikTok came about and Snapchat came about, and they're still trying to figure out what the hell to do on TikTok and on Snapchat. And to the instance where what happened with your kid is this is just, inefficient, ineffective targeting, because your kid is obviously watching
something for a 7-year-old.
So the playing an iPhone 14 ad during that YouTube video is the equivalence of you on TV when you were her age, watching your cartoons and they play an ad for a car.
But I mean, it's obviously work because now she's asking for it, and I'm a parent that's saying no. But there's probably some parents out there who go, maybe.
Kids, they're always trying to push the envelope.
Tell me about it. Leanne's saying, my best friend loves to cook, and whenever a new kitchen gadget pops up on her social media page, she literally orders it online immediately, thinking she desperately needs it. It's quite worrying. So what are some of those psychological tricks that advertisers use to make Leanne's friend and so many of us go, click, purchase, add to cart?
Yeah, well, I think there's a general misperception and a misunderstanding of how advertising works. We assume that, the role of advertising is to put the information out there for people to process and act rationally about them. But this is not how the world works. 95% of purchase decisions are made in the unconscious mind. Only 5% are made in the reflective mind. So when it's unconscious, you are acting impulsively, instinctively. And as advertisers, we need to figure out how the unconscious mind works. This is like an evolutionarily old part of the brain. And the way it works is we seek to signal out specific personal traits about ourselves to either survive and or reproduce. So to survive, you need to deter rivals. So you tell in a high school reunion, you tell your high school classmates that you've made it. So they are your rivals. So stay away from my boyfriend, stay away from my lunch. And that's one trigger. The second one is reproduction. So you're always trying to attract, a potential mate. So when I buy a fancy car, when I buy a fancy watch, the ad needs to tell me that when you wear it, girls are gonna like you.
Think about that Lynx or Axe aftershave advert.
And the third one is the reciprocity. And this is what triggers gift giving. So when I give you a gift, it's because I want to establish a reciprocal relationship with you. So I want to show you how much effort I've put into the gift and what have you. So Christmas is coming, and this is the psychological trigger behind gift giving and buying gifts. It's what we call unspoken competition, that who's gonna get you the most thoughtful gift. And they showed that there are gender differences in what motivates men to buy a gift for another woman versus women.
Go on.
Men, they just want to throw money at it, to tell them, I have the ability to acquire resources. I bought you a very expensive gift. No thoughts beyond that.
Okay.
Women, they go for thoughtful gifts to show you that, I've given it a thought, I've given it an effort to show how much she cares.
I'm now questioning, my husband and I are buying each other a tent for Christmas. What does that say? Ahmad, I'm keen to get your take on regulation. You mentioned there about that being a bit of a mistargeted advert, an iPhone 14 on kids' YouTube.
Yes.
But what about content regulation? What kind of responsibility do you think advertisers have, or indeed should have, when it comes to marketing those products?
Interesting that social media is a mess.
Yeah, I agree.
We're hoping Elon Musk will fix it for us. I'm not so sure. I don't think he's fixing it.
I've seen his bedside table. I haven't got much hope in him.
Exactly. So whenever they try to regulate fake news, they try to regulate, the president calling for riots, and people were like, no, we want freedom of speech. So it's going to be very tough to regulate it. But the invitation is to bring in talented, competent people to work in advertising, and allow them to work on their craft, and allow them to really unleash their creativity.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, because I feel like maybe it's not as respected as it could or should be. And there are some amazing people. I used to work for an advertising agency, and there was a sign on the door which was "Do not feed the creatives," because behind that door were the creative team, and they were like animals from Muppets. But I think, unfortunately, there have been some lazy advertising or clumsy, thoughtless that has kind of let the industry down. And I like the fact you used the word craft there, because it really is, or it really could or should be.
Yes. So in Arabic, we have a proverb that, it talks about the carpenter with a dysfunctional door, or the shoemaker who is barefoot, the barefoot shoemaker. And the same applies to advertisers, that we do so much to uplift and enhance the image of our clients, but we do so little. We're like the barefoot shoemaker. I think
we have a similar one, which is the cobbler's children are never shod. So the man that makes the shoes, his children are always barefoot.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time today. Really, really interesting. And I hope it's given everyone a bit of pause for thought next time they see an advert, and reflecting on how does it make me feel? How do they want me to feel after seeing this, hearing this, reading this? I love a good sad advert. I feel like sometimes it can be really wonderful just to kind of unlock the John Lewis adverts that people from the UK will have seen. And it is, because sometimes it can bring together this feeling of connection, or a moment, or a kind of a cultural crossroads sometimes. And hang on, I'm going to get one last question, because this is a great one. Can you comment on the latest Balenciaga campaign?
Yeah, I was on TV talking about it.
Tell us in a couple of minutes what your take on it is. I mean, it's a great bit of PR for them. My goodness, we're talking about it right now.
Yeah. Well, there's a new concept in marketing, brand activism, when a brand takes a political stand.
Of course, yeah.
And at times it's a divisive stand. But very often this is misunderstood. And it should not serve a personal agenda of someone working at the brand. It should serve the business, the brand. And what happened with Balenciaga is there's a stylist who she's into this. So this is her personal agenda to normalize whatever the hell that was.
Careful.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there seems to be a lot of willful, la la la, we didn't see that document, or la la la, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Surely it's been much more calculated and purposeful than we've been led to believe by a pretty
when
appalling
someone
apology.
Takes money from an organization to serve their own personal agenda, I call this corruption in disguise, because it's your personal agenda.
Well said indeed. For anyone that wants to get in touch with you, follow you, read more about your thoughts on advertising and everything else, Ahmad, what's the best way of getting in touch?
Instagram is at Ahmad the Adman.
There you go. Great bit of personal branding there. So if you do want those details, by all means, get in touch. It's Afternoons with me, Helen Farmer.